The moment your eyes catch someone's eyes across a room, something happens. Information passes between you. A bond forms or doesn't form. A current runs and stops, or runs and continues. You did not choose for it to happen. You did not authorize the exchange. It simply occurred in the quarter second before your conscious mind had time to intervene. Modern science has names for the neurochemistry. But the phenomenology is older than the science by thousands of years. Every culture that ever produced art put the gaze at the center of its love, poetry, and its religious paintings. They all knew. We are only now rediscovering what they knew. This is the psychology of the gaze. What is actually happening when two eyes meet? The materialist answer is straightforward. Photons hit the retina. Signal travels along the optic nerve. Visual cortex processes the image. Limbic system triggers an emotional response. Oxytocin releases. Mirror neurons fire. The whole cascade is mappable, measurable, mechanical. This is correct. It is also incomplete. Across centuries, in traditions much older than neuroscience, the same observation keeps appearing. When the eye meets another eye, something more than information passes. Something gets transmitted. Something gets received. Something binds. The old traditions had complete vocabularies for this. They mapped the operation in detail. Camille Paglia, writing in 1990, gave the old observation a sharp modern formulation. The eye, she argued, is the primary avenue of eros. Western art's obsession with the gaze, the sidelong glance, the portrait that follows the viewer across the room, the smile that refuses to yield its secret, is not an aesthetic quirk. It is a direct expression of the Thonian structure of desire. To see, in the erotic sense, is to act upon. To be seen is to be acted upon. The gaze is force. It crosses the space between bodies as surely as a touch. It carries charge. It alters what it encounters. The eye does not merely register. The eye reaches. Paglia's claim has a much older ancestor. Giordano Bruno, the Italian Dominican friar who was burned at the stake in Rome in 1600 for believing things the church could not contain, wrote in 1590 that sight is the dominant gateway through which all bonds enter the human soul. The eye, for Bruno, is the door through which the bond enters and through which it must keep entering, or starve. He wrote that the lover perishes for want of seeing the object of his love. Sight is more durable than touch. It is more direct than thought. Once the eye has installed an image, the image keeps generating the bond from within. The lover does not even need the beloved to be present. The eye carries the image forward. Bruno was building on something even older. A century before him, Marsilio Ficino, the Florentine priest who first translated Plato into Latin, had developed a theory of how the gaze actually operates. The theory is shocking even now. Ficino argued that when two people lock eyes, vapors rise from their hearts, ascend into their eyes, and exit through the pupils as physical rays. These rays cross the space between the lovers and enter the other person's eyes. They descend through the optic nerves into the heart. They install themselves there. Ficino called these vapors spiritus, a substance halfway between body and soul. The lovers do not, in his account, fall in love. They exchange spiritus through the eyes. The exchange is the love. He wrote this in 1469. Ficino's theory rests on an even older concept, the cardiac mirror. The pneuma, the subtle substance the Renaissance believed lived in the heart, is described as a mirror with two faces. One face reflects sense data coming in from the world. The other face reflects the eternal forms coming from the soul. The gaze is the channel through which both reflections become visible to another person. When you look at someone with intent, you are not just seeing them. You are also showing them what your inner mirror is currently reflecting. They receive both at once. The trained practitioner can do this deliberately. The untrained practitioner does it accidentally and constantly, without knowing. Modern neuroscience has, slowly, started to catch up to what Ficino was describing. Mirror neurons, discovered in the 1990s, fire in the same patterns when a person observes another's actions as when performing those actions themselves. Mutual eye contact triggers oxytocin release in both participants, the same hormone released during physical intimacy. Functional MRI studies show that being looked at activates neural circuits identical to being touched. Studies of infant-mother bonding demonstrate that the mutual gaze is the primary mechanism by which the infant brain organizes itself into a coherent self. We are literally made through being looked at. Modern science calls this interbrain synchronization. Ficino called it spiritus. The mechanism is the same. The vocabulary changed. Here is what the old tradition understood that the modern reframe misses. The trained gaze is not aggressive. It does not pursue. It does not chase. The lover and the magician, in Bruno's reading, are not hunters in the active sense. They cast their nets and put out their phantasmic baits and traps. Then they wait. The Latin words Bruno uses for this, rete, ilex, ilesebra, esca, all mean net, decoy, lure, bait. The trained gaze sets the conditions and allows the other person's gaze to come find it. Pursuit is the mark of the untrained. Stillness is the mark of the trained. The lure works precisely because it does not chase. Of all the senses, why does the eye carry the bond? The Renaissance answer was that the eye is the body's most refined organ. It is the place where the inner pneuma comes closest to the surface of the body. The skin is a boundary, the mouth is a gate, but the eye is something else. The eye is where the soul itself becomes visible. Modern phenomenology agrees from a different angle. The eye is the only organ where the inner life of another person becomes directly observable. You cannot see someone's thoughts. You cannot see their feelings as they exist, but you can see their gaze. And the gaze, once you learn to read it, contains everything. Here is the strangest thing about all of this. Bruno's theory is not unique to the Western Renaissance. The same teaching appears, almost word for word, across traditions that had no contact with each other. The Indian tantric tradition has practices for training the gaze that are documented in texts older than Plato. The Sufi mystics of medieval Persia developed a discipline of gazing at the beloved's face until the inner image became more vivid than physical sight. The Eastern Orthodox monks developed a prayer of the heart, which begins by drawing the inner eye into the chest. The Taoists have the same teaching about the heart space. 5 traditions, 5 vocabularies, 1 teaching. The eye is the door. What passes through the door must be cleansed first. In an age when most visual attention is captured by glowing rectangles, the trained gaze has become rare. Most of the eye contact most people experience in a day is with a phone screen, not with another human face. The phone is a one-way gaze. You look at it, it does not look back. Or worse, it appears to look back to the simulation of faces it shows you, none of whom are present. This trains the eye in the wrong direction. It trains the eye to look without expecting return. The result is a population that has never experienced what the old tradition called the trained gaze, because the conditions for it have been quietly removed from daily life. The next time you catch someone's eye in a real room, notice what happens. So the eye is the door. 500 years ago, Marsilio Ficino wrote down what every culture had been encoding in its art for thousands of years. 400 years ago, Giordano Bruno refined the theory and was burned at the stake in Rome for it. In 1991, a Romanian scholar named Ioan Culianu, who had carried the unbroken thread into the modern academy, was murdered in a Chicago divinity school for reasons that were never publicly explained. And tonight, you, watching this, are participating in a tradition that has been transmitted across centuries at significant cost. The next time someone catches your eye and you feel something happen that has no name, know that the name is older than the psychology. Know that what you felt was real.